everybody, a warm welcome to Wisdom from North, the place where we're diving into the deeper meaning of life and asking the big questions. My name is Jannike, and today I'm here with Suzanne Giesemann, who is a former US Navy commander, but today she's addressing questions on life, on the nature of reality, and tuning into higher consciousness. And she calls herself an evidence-based medium. She has written 11 books, including Messages of Hope and Wolf's Message. And today we're going to speak about mediumship. Hello, Susanna. How are you doing today?
Hi, Jannike. I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing wonderful. Just came home from Spain. I've been doing interviews under the sun, so I'm a bit sunburned. But I so love what I do. And there was this wonderful man who recommended that I checked out your work. And I thought it was so interesting that you went from being a Navy commander, having flown with the president, meeting kings and queens, and then now you're doing mediumship and teaching people about the afterlife and giving them hope. And I really want to hear more about that later on. But I thought perhaps we could start with you explaining what actually an evidence-based medium is, what you mean by that.
Yes, of course. Well, a medium is somebody who shows that life continues beyond death by connecting with those who have passed to the other side, those who have allegedly died. And an evidence-based medium is one who shows that they're still here by giving verifiable facts about that person's lifetime that the medium couldn't know. The difference between evidence and a message is a message would be something like, oh, your loved one is here and they're fine and they love you very much and they're doing well on the other side. That sounds great, but if I'm a skeptic and I want to really know that my loved one is okay and still survives, that's not going to convince me. But if you can give me evidence such as how they died, what they were like, their favorite memories, their names, what kind of work they did, that's what an evidence-based medium will give you.
That's very interesting, and I think that's very important too, actually, even to open people, because you don't want it to be too general, because you always have the mind, I feel like, where you doubt a little bit.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the process. How do you communicate them? How do you get the information? Is it something you just turn on and off, or is it always there, or do you have to do something in order to connect?
I think it's really important, and I know we'll get into this, but to let everybody know that I'm relatively new to this, only been doing this since 2009. So I'm not a born medium. I haven't known for my entire lifetime that I had this ability. So I do have to turn it on and turn it off. I don't see the spirits walking around like many mediums do. I have to sit with intention, tune into my heart, and it's like flipping a switch. I literally say to myself, shift. And because of that intention, and I've set the intention of connecting with a specific family or friends of one person in particular, all of a sudden I'm aware of them. And I begin to bring through evidence of those people.
But being aware of them, what does that mean? Do you see them or feel them? Or because for me, I wouldn't understand
Great
what
question.
that means.
Okay. First, I get lightheaded. I feel like I'm dizzy. So I know that something's going on. And then as I become aware of that lightheadedness, I suddenly will see images in my mind's eye. I can have my eyes open or closed. I hear words and phrases that sound just like my own thoughts. I feel the personality as if it's me. So I get physical symptoms in my own body that related to that person. You put all of these pieces together, state them all to your client. We call it a sitter, like somebody sitting in the chair with you. You give all of this information to your sitter. Well, I'm hearing that they were an engineer, and I see them sitting in a chair by a fireplace with a statue of an owl next to them. I mean, really bizarre things, but it can be very, very detailed. And all of this together, or even sometimes just one specific detail, will have your sitter say, oh my gosh, that's my dad, or that's my son. those kinds of things.
Is it sometimes symbolic that you need to interpret it as well? Like, because I'm thinking that the spirit world is very different from ours, and it's very symbolic, perhaps. Yeah, so maybe they can show you an umbrella, and you don't know what that means, but you still see it. Yeah.
Yes, and this is what I've learned, that the more readings that I give, the more I build my library of symbols. I teach mediumship now, and this is one of the key points, that the very first time I saw an apron on a lady, I asked her, I have communication with the spirits. It's two-way communication. I'm not just reading a memory field. We are talking to each other. So I say silently, what does that apron mean? And it feels, and she says that she was a homemaker. She didn't work outside the house. So from now on, from that moment on, anytime somebody was a homemaker, they show me the apron.
Oh, so that means that they know you so well. So they know what kind of symbols you need to understand something.
Yes, and you're going to find this perhaps a little strange, but we all have a spirit guide. I'm sure you probably know that. But mediums have a guide who helps them with their readings. And using my Navy terminology, I know that before every reading, my main guide briefs that spirit on my symbols. Okay, you were a homemaker. Well, her symbol for that is apron. So you're going to show her an apron. Kind of like that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit what your perspective or what you've learned about what actually happens when we die? Because these are people who have passed. So where are they in a way? Are they in like this middle station dimension or is it maybe different that some have, gone into deeper dimensions and others are at different levels? Yeah.
The best way I can describe it is, imagine awakening from one dream into another dream. It's just one reality into another reality. Suddenly you're aware of a whole different existence and you're continuing to live in that existence, yet you can look back on your life here. I had a hard time believing what those in the spirit world were telling me about what they were doing on the other side, because I couldn't prove it. Until one day I just set all doubt aside and my guides gave me what I call a download. For over an hour, they described the afterlife. And it's now on my homepage of my website. It's a free download, this incredible document about what it's like with various levels depending on your soul's growth, the refinement of your vibration. At first, if you haven't been around a while as a soul, you may want to continue having a human-like existence with a body and maybe doing the kinds of activities that you liked doing when you were in human form. But if you're a more evolved soul, you no longer even need a body, and you're just a light being. So it's a process, which of course means that reincarnation, in my understanding, is a very real thing. But it's just a succession of cycles with growth, and each experience between lifetimes would be different.
Okay, so there are other dimensions that are kind of earthly, like, since you said that some go to they have a more physical body, so they are more similar to Earth in a way?
It's funny you're calling it dimensions. I would call it a perceptual reality.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there are different perceptions. Well, I can't lose the thought of it. Is different places in a way, and I know that's.
I know, but if you just think of it in terms of like a dream, it's a reality. It's a reality. I like to tell people that you have an energetic field right now as Jannica. That's your aura. That's your signal. It's a frequency with its own unique vibration. That's you, and I have my own signal. That's me. Now, you're not really sitting in my computer screen. You exist as a signal. If just like a television that takes a signal out of the air, if the television breaks, the signal is still there, right? Okay? Well, this body, our physical body, is the instrument that displays our signal. So if this body dies, if it breaks, where does the signal go?
Right.
It doesn't go to another place. The signal is still there. only it's in a different state of awareness. It's aware of a different reality now because it no longer has this body to perceive this human reality through.
So there are infinite realities.
Absolutely, yes. And it's whatever you want to create for yourself because you are a conscious creator with your consciousness. I'll just give you an example, though, how I know that this is so. This is evidential. I was sitting with a woman and tuned in, and I said, oh, you have a husband on the other side, because there's a man here who's telling me he's your husband. And he showed me that he passed very suddenly from a heart attack. I have symbols. That means suddenly. And I tuned in and got all kinds of evidence about the kind of work, his education level. I knew this was her husband. And he said, tell my wife I'm standing firmly on 2 feet and golfing every day. Now, that was kind of funny. Why would he be doing that in the afterlife? And she explained to me, golf was his passion, but his leg was amputated before he died and he could no longer golf. So he gets to the other side. With his consciousness, he creates a reality in which he now has 2 legs again, and he's golfing every day.
Wow.
You see?
Yeah. Yeah, I've come to understand that the afterlife is much more real than we think it is. Or
yes,
I shouldn't speak for others like that. What I've pictured, from my childhood, I've been picturing this airy-fairy place in a way, very concrete. Right. Mm-hmm. But I think it's very concrete, actually.
Yes, they tell us it's as solid to them as our world is to us, because it's all relative depending upon the bandwidth of energy in which you are. This table that I'm sitting next to seems solid to me, but if I were just a tiny little electron, it would be completely
right
non-solid. It's all relative.
So often I think about, and probably many others are thinking about that, oh, I love, my family or this person so much and I want to be with them forever, and maybe some of them pass on and you wonder where they are. And I would feel sometimes that I'm afraid that I won't kind of be at the same place as they are, or now I'm back to the place thing, but what if, or a person that I really care about is on another vibration and we won't be together, like I'm in a totally different vibration, yes. Like spiritually, could we still meet, or could you say some words about that?
Yes, I like that you say, where are they? I just finished last week writing my latest book, and it's called Still Right Here. So where are they? They're right here, but right now in our earthly realm, we can't perceive them because they're at a different vibration. Relative to us, we can't perceive them like a signal. But once we pass to their vibration, then they're very obvious to us, and they're there to greet us, to meet us. But for now, because we're a lower vibration, they're aware of us. You can perceive what's lower than you in vibration, but a little challenging to perceive what's higher. So anytime we think of our loved ones who've passed, it's like we light up a circuit, a vibrational circuit, and they've described it to me as if like a doorbell rings. Oh. And, my loved one is thinking about me, and vibrationally they draw near, and a medium who can see spirits would actually see them standing there next to them. Right.
So when we pass on, would we be able to connect with them? Like, I'm wondering about...
right away. Yeah? Right away. But they tell us who greeted them when they passed. My first example of this was when my stepdaughter died. This was the impetus for me to begin delving into the afterlife. I went to a medium, and she said to me, well, your daughter was met by Jackie. That's her grandmother, my husband's mother. So that's evidence, and it's beautiful.
Right. Yeah. So, do you know anything about like soul contracts? Have they told you about if we are meant to be with the people we are in families with, the people we meet? I know you have a beautiful husband and you seem very, very connected, like a soulmate connection.
Oh, definitely. Yes.
Yeah. Have they told you about that, if we do have some soul contracts?
Yes, they have. And I don't spend a lot of time on that because I can't prove it. But many many people who deal with the afterlife do say the same type of things, that we plan who we're going to interact with in this life, always for the greatest opportunities for each person's soul's growth. That's the whole point of being here, to raise our vibration, our consciousness, to learn to be more loving. And so we're matched up with souls who have certain life lessons, so we get to work on them, which is why our partners are really good at pushing our buttons. Right? They give us that chance to say, maybe I can respond to these behaviors in a higher way. And they're perfect for that.
Right. So what about like manifesting? I've always been curious about why things happen in a way. What make things happen? My question is around, co-creation and destiny and faith, and how these things go together. Are we, the ones creating everything in our lives, or do we actually get help? Like there's a destiny there.
Wow. I believe it's a process of the creative spirit source of the universe that flows through us, that is us, impelling us to make choices that create. So we're both the creator and the created together. So some things are predetermined, but because of our use of will and through our choices, that's how the growth of the whole system, the whole process ensues. Mm-hmm. So not everything is determined, but certain things definitely are meant to happen. But we do have help from the spirit world. I have evidence of this in almost every reading, of how a loved one has eased your way for you, or made certain people come together because they're supposed to meet. Right. For the growth, the greater growth of the whole.
Yeah, I think so too. Like I often ask this question about the free will and the destiny and the co-creation, because I think it's one of the biggest mysteries, is what makes things happen. And I think that the mystery is so big that we cannot understand it with our minds, but it is sort of both. It's not either or, it's both. And I can't understand how that works.
Well, my guides explain to me, they say, picture a map. And before you come here through this soul contract, you have your main life's path down the center of that map, like a highway. And when you get, and it actually has certain exit points. Oh. Several. Oh. And that's why some people have near-death experiences and they get a choice. Do you want to go back and continue on, or do you want to make this your main exit point? But along that highway, because of free will and because we need a little bit of choices, you take certain detours off the main path, and you're allowed to do that, and growth ensues. Sometimes you get on really bumpy roads and you say, what am I doing? That was a terrible choice. And so you find your own way back to the path because it was so uncomfortable getting off your main path. And at other times you'll take another detour and you don't realize you're getting too far from your path. And that's when your guides or loved ones might step in and gently, without you even knowing it, guide you back to your main path. And you know when you're in the flow, on the right path, because life is just flowing. But when you keep hitting walls, you've made a detour. And you can always ask, how do I get back on track? You see?
So do you think we can all get messages like you did?
Absolutely. Yes, because I know this, having not been a born medium, we all have the same equipment. It's a soul. And we're all spirit. Once you come to realize that and you believe that in your heart, then you tune into your heart and you start just on true faith, asking questions of higher consciousness. And you start getting answers that you think are your own thoughts. But when you act on them and that flow continues, then you learn to trust that.
Yeah, I think so too. That it's really about like taking that leap and actually trusting it and going into it. And I think it's very subtle in the beginning, and that's why maybe I and many others are like, no, it didn't happen, so it didn't work. I'll do something else. But I think really it is a great deal of work you have to put into it. And then being open to those subtle clues, and then I think they will grow. That's how I imagine it. And when I was doing a lot of spiritual practices, things happened.
Oh,
and
yes.
Now they're not happening because I'm like so busy.
Yeah. I wrote a book called Wolf's Message about a young man whose nickname was Wolf. And he was an amazing person because he was so connected to his soul that he knew how he was going to die, when he was going to die, and
Wow.
left a drawing and a poem about it. And it's stunning, stunning. But in the book, it's a true story. He came back to me through a reading for his parents and left all kinds of clues for this big message for humanity. And that book is a really good example of following the guidance, because it's like a metaphysical mystery in that I keep pulling the thread of trying to figure out what it was he was trying to tell all of us by listening to those really subtle, subtle messages that you're talking about. But it's fun, don't you think? It makes life magical to say, well, I think I just heard this. I'm going to try that. And it works. You have synchronicities and you say, wow, I really am being guided.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this, and I have a very rational mind that keeps coming in, and it's the periods in my life where I'm more open than others, and right now I'm more very into the 3D world in a way, manifesting things, wanting to create things, and not so going so within, but I know there's time for everything. And I know it's there. It just disappears a little bit when I don't focus on it. At least that's what it is for me. But I've had some experiences, like being out of my body, meditating a lot, and then I got like this evidence I needed for myself. That was all I needed. Nobody could say to me, it's not real, because I knew that I had some sort of an experience that I exist outside my body at least.
Yes. And the thing is that what you said there just shows me that you're just in your left brain. That's where your focus is.
Yeah.
And I certainly understand that. That's why I was chosen, I think, to be the aide to the top military officer in the United States, because I was logical, organized, rational, left brain. But to do this work as a medium, then I've needed to shift to right brain, which is knowing, sensing, wholeness, flowing. And that's simply a choice. So at any time during the day, you don't have to sit in meditation. The way you get into that right brain state is simply being present, just blending with the reality that's around you instead of focusing on the future or thinking about the past. That immediately takes you to left brain. So just 5 minutes a day of practicing presence will allow you to be more balanced. And why would you want that? Because when you slip into that right brain state, that's when the insights and the guidance from higher consciousness can get through to you, making your left brain state more valuable to you.
Just 5 minutes. That will help.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe when you're walking outside, walking on the street, instead of going over all of your goals and your to-do list, you just become present to the sounds on the street and what's happening around you with no purpose other than being still. And that allows space for creativity and insight that helps your life here and now.
Yeah, I've actually noticed that thinking can, I was thinking the other day, thinking can be addictive. That is something like, it gives me a good feeling to think a lot. Now, how can I say this in English? That I feel kind of addicted to thinking a lot.
It's perfect. It's what happens, and that's why more and more people are becoming detached from each other and from our heart. We're so in our brains that we think we're just this story. But when you get through your heart, that's where you feel the connectedness with everyone. So it is an addiction. Even though we're connected with our phones to each other, that's not the same.
Yeah, and I think one needs awareness of that. Like, wow, I'm in my thinking mode again. And I interviewed a yoga teacher, Katya Nanda. She was talking about naming what you're doing, like thinking mind, planning mind, going into the future thinking, like really naming it, so you became aware of what
That's presence. That's presence. Because when I'm out for a walk, I literally just use verbs like that. Walking. hearing, and that keeps you present. So that
Right.
was excellent advice.
Good tools. So, are there accidents? I'm thinking, people who have lost people in a car accident or flight accident. Are the accident an accident, or was it meant to be in a way? Have they?
I don't have an answer that's definitive about that. I can tell you that because I know these exit points exist, that something will happen to enable the soul to continue its growth in the next dimension. For example, my stepdaughter, Susan, she passed to the other side after being struck by lightning.
Yeah.
She told me from the other side that was an exit point because she hadn't taken one earlier. And I remembered an accident. She was in her car and it rolled over. She didn't even have a scratch. Now, I feel that could have been the exit point, but it didn't cause her death. And so a little while later, here comes the lightning bolt. If she hadn't passed from that, then perhaps something else would have created or manifested so that her life story would continue in the next dimension. This is the point. I mean, we see a plane crash, and I don't want to talk about this because I'm about to get on a plane, but if it's meant to happen, we're not going to stop it. But it's not a tragedy for those on the plane who perish because their lives continue. And that death allows us incredible opportunities for our soul's growth, those of us left behind. So my work as a medium has really allowed me to share with others a whole new way of looking at death and life and why we're here.
So, would you like to share a little bit about this big transition that you had, coming from the left brain world and being a Navy commander, a great leader in a way, and then going into the softness and the heart and the opening? It's just such a big leap for me, and I'm so amazed by it. And I know it has to do with your daughter-in-law. Is that how you call it?
Stepdaughter, my husband's daughter.
Stepdaughter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what happened?
Right. Well, I was the aide to the head of the U.S. military on September 11th, 2001. And I returned. We were actually in the last airplane in U.S. airspace, the last aircraft in the air on that day. And we flew over New York City and saw the smoke. And we returned to my office building, the Pentagon, that had been attacked. And that event is what started me asking questions like, why are some people in the wrong place at the wrong time? I knew that was like the spark that started me really asking spiritual questions. So I asked for a little bit, but then I put it to the side because I was still very much earthly thinking. And then I retired from the Navy, and a couple of years later, we got the news that Susan had been killed, struck by lightning, as I said. And it was a double tragedy for our family because she was 6 months pregnant with our first grandchild. So we lost both of them just like that. And I could no longer put that to the side. Now I needed to know, why do some people die young? She was 27. And what's the whole meaning of life? And does life go on? And so I had heard about these people called mediums who could connect with people who had died, but I never had a reason to consult one before. And once Susan passed, all I wanted to know is she still around us? Because we were devastated. So I took my husband to a medium. And what's funny, Jannica, is I didn't realize it at the time, but he later told me he didn't even know what a medium was. I said, we're going to a medium. And he said, yes, dear. He said, okay, whatever you want. And that medium brought through evidence that Susan was right there in the room with us. I got goosebumps just thinking about it. She told us things about her that she couldn't possibly have known. It changed my entire worldview overnight. It took me days just to process, oh my gosh, you mean there really is a spirit world? This woman even told us that our daughter was bringing with her a little baby boy that she wanted to introduce to us, and Susan's baby was going to be a boy. So I couldn't ignore that anymore. And I started learning more about mediums. I wrote a couple biographies of some mediums here in the United States. And in the process of doing the research, went to several classes of this one woman whose biography I was writing. And she said, you can do this too. There's a spirit standing here. Come up to the front of the room and tell me what you sense.
Wow.
I think it's because I had been meditating ever since the week that Susan passed, that I had created that space in my awareness to sense the man in spirit who was standing there when the teacher said, what do you sense? Until that moment, I hadn't had an experience of spirit because I didn't believe it was possible. But when that teacher said, he's there and you can do this, I just quieted my mind, and suddenly I heard engineer, Cancer. I saw the number 70, which was his age. I saw a full head of white hair, and he said twinkle toes. Well, the man was the father of one of the women in the class who died at age 70 of cancer, who was an engineer, and whose nickname was Twinkle Toes. So that was the start for me when I said, wait a minute, you mean I can do this too? And so I knew how healing the reading for my husband and me was when that medium showed us that Susan is right here with us. And I thought, if I can do that for even one other person who has lost somebody or thought they lost them, they're right here, then I want to see how good I can get at this. And I spend every day of my life trying to get a clearer and clearer connection with the spirit.
It's a beautiful mission you have, and I feel like there are no coincidences. I mean, it seems like your stepdaughter, that there was a reason for her passing so young, and it seems like you made something beautiful out of that, and instead of perhaps losing all kind of life spark, which one can do when we lose people who are so close to us. It's so easy to go into grief for such a long time and never really recovering, actually.
Yeah. So. If we know that they're okay on the other side, and a good medium can show you that, then the question for us becomes exactly what you said. So what do we do with this? Susan's passing to the other side at age 27 not only allowed her soul to continue growing on the other side, but has allowed our whole family here to grow. And because of her passing, I now touch tens of thousands of people, maybe more, with the messages of hope and love that all of this represents.
So can you talk a little bit about suicide? Because I know a lot of people have lost friends and relatives in suicide, and I just lost a person I know very young, and it always it touches my heart the most because I feel like, wow, they had so much potential, and I'm wondering from the spirit perspectives, the ones you've been in contact with, if that is something different in a way than a normal death.
That word potential, that was an excellent choice of word for you, because that's the whole challenge with suicide, is that I've brought through hundreds of souls who took their own life. I see a symbol, in fact. I have a specific symbol that right away I say, oh, this was a suicide. And they all tell me, every single one, I'm not burning in hell. They're in a healing place immediately. In fact, almost all of them show me like a blue light, a peaceful light that pervades their whole environment. And like a hospital ward with healing beings around them to help them in the beginning. And then they end up in a kind of a group counseling session where they're shown their lives and shown the choices that they made, but they also become aware of the effect of their actions, how they cut short that potential. And so over time, even though there's no time on the other side, what we understand as time, through their learning, they see how they could have made different choices, and actually many of them ultimately choose to come back and try again. So suicide is not an escape, but they're also not punished. They feel the effects of their choices. I recently brought through a young man. His mother contacted me the day after he died. She said, my son took his own life yesterday, but he didn't leave a note. I need to know. I need to connect with him and find out why. And I just opened my heart and I said, you know, if he wanted you to know, he would have left a note. We need to give him time to adjust, to learn how to communicate with you, and for your grief to come down so that when we do connect, then he's ready to tell you. So I said, we'll wait 3 months. And we just did that reading last month, and it was amazing. First of all, she thanked me for waiting because she was in a different place after three months. And he came through with amazing evidence. He showed me, I remember specifically, I said, he's showing me he had a college degree in the sciences. He's kneeling down in the ground, hammering with a little chisel in the dirt like an archaeologist. And she said, he was an archaeologist. So right away, I know this is him. And he was showing me that. It's not me reading her mind. He showed me an incredibly specific picture of a family memory, who was in the picture, what they were wearing, all these details. And then he explained why he took his life. And at first, his parents said, no, we're not aware of that. But just last week, I got an email that the young man's brother was aware of those details. And in fact, there were challenges he was facing that he hadn't shared with his parents. So it shows me that he was ready to talk about it, but couldn't talk about it when he was here.
Right. Wow, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Touches me. So I bet you've been thinking about the big responsibility in a way, because I mean, there are so vulnerable souls coming to you wanting answers. And
Yes.
I've also seen that you say that a medium is not 100% accurate. And
Well,
I believe
yes.
that too, that there's a filter, you know. So how
Yes.
do you sometimes know if things are, you know, through you? Like maybe you interpret it wrong or... Yeah.
This is the biggest challenge, and it's why I'm happy to be teaching now, because I hear so many stories of mediums who say things and to their clients that could be hurtful, such as, oh, I'm not sensing your father because he doesn't want to come through. No, we don't say things like that. Maybe it's because, well, there could be any number of reasons. But This is why the evidence is so important. If you can get enough verifiable evidence that your client, your sitter, does know and says, yes, that's true, yes, that's true, then as you tune into the whole feeling of that spirit, then you can trust the messages, the reasons, the explanations that we can't necessarily prove. But I always tell my sitters, I hope this feels right to you. This is how it feels to me. If there's something I'm absolutely wavering on, I won't say it. I won't say it. And there are things, if they're painful, I won't tell them at all. We don't have to tell them everything. I may sense something in that spirit's energy field without them even saying it. And if there's no reason to hurt somebody here, you just don't say it.
Can you basically get answers to anything? Or is it sometimes they say that, I don't want to answer that, so you can't actually, you don't get it?
Yeah, it's really amazing to be in the flow, to be getting information, and your sitter will say, ask them this. And you ask a question and they give you an answer. Then the sitter says, ask them this. You ask a question and it just goes, whoop, and there's nothing there. And I say, whoa, they don't want to answer that. And sometimes it's really clear why. Because it's the sitter, it's your responsibility here to learn that life lesson yourself.
Right.
And they know what they're not supposed to tell you.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have, a grandmother and a grandfather on the other side, and I'm thinking sometimes, are they my guides in a way? And if I would use them as my guides, ask them for advice, would that be the best thing to do? Because I don't know what vibration they are on. Like maybe I should instead contact my higher self. I guess my question is like our relatives. How can we know kind of what vibration they are on? Like if they have full wisdom, do they have full knowledge, or do they also have limited knowledge?
It is limited. It's more than we have here generally, because now they have a bigger perspective, the higher picture. But I like to use the analogy of the internet, because we are connected with a matrix, a grid of consciousness. But when you sit down on the internet and you want an answer to a question, you type it in the search box, you hit enter, and out it goes. You don't have to worry where it goes, do you? You know that because you've put that search out there, the answer you need is just magically going to come back to you, right? The computer does its thing. So when you have a question for the universe, you can be very specific and ask your grandmother. That's like going to a specific page on the internet. Or you can just put your question in your search box. Do I take this new job? And trust that when you send it out with your heart to the universe, maybe your grandmother will answer it, maybe your higher self, maybe your spirit guide. You trust the system to send you the answer you need back. So you can go specifically to grandmother, specifically to your guide, or just whoever's listening, here is my specific question. Boom, out it goes.
That was interesting. I love that picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Do we need to be aware of bad spirits, if there are such a thing?
Those are a creation of consciousness. If your mind can create it, then it exists. So where you put your focus is your reality. I completely focus on the light. I know that love is our essence, and I just don't go there. I protect myself by turning up the light. Protect myself from what? My own thoughts. People who are fearful of lower vibrations attract that, actually creating it like a magnet. Does it exist? Yes, because so many individual souls have created through fear lower vibrations. Some of us are here to simply hold that light. Thank goodness. So our innate protection is knowing we are the light, and we turn it up.
Yeah, I hear that again and again, actually, and I'm starting to realize how powerful my own mind is.
Yes.
And something to be aware of. The fear is just so easy to go into fear and create more fear, and because we are afraid of losing, the ones we love too. So we hold on to it, cling on to it.
Yeah.
So a little bit back to the evidence-based. I know you have some stories that really gave some evidence to you. Can you share some of the stories, where you have been working with people that you really got great evidences?
Yeah. I love the stories that show that I'm not just reading my client's mind, that I've shared some of those already, things that the client doesn't know and somebody else shows them. I want to share a picture with you that I've showed on another interview, but for your listeners, it's just magical. I gave a reading to a couple. I knew they had a daughter on the other side. So I tuned in, and she showed me that she was a teenager when she passed, not yet in college. She showed me that she just slipped away. And in fact, I've learned through this work, there's a kind of death that's called sudden adolescent death syndrome, like sudden infant death syndrome. Can you imagine this couple's daughter just went to sleep and didn't wake up? Nothing wrong with her. So that's what she showed me, and that's how she passed. And she was a beautiful child. She showed me all kinds of evidence. Well, a couple of months after the reading, I was sitting at home working on my typewriter, and all of a sudden, she dropped in. I got lightheaded, so I knew there was a spirit present, and I tuned in, and I recognized her spirit because she's just a beautiful soul with a specific light. And she showed me this round ball that she had showed me in the reading, but I didn't know what it was, so I didn't bring it up. And she showed it to me again. So I wrote to her mother. I texted her. I said, your daughter just dropped in. She's showing me this ball that looks like a Christmas decoration, but it's not. And she's laughing about it. And her mother sent me a picture of this thing that looks like a Christmas ornament hanging in the kitchen. It's called a happy thought bubble, which is beautiful, that some friends gave to the family after the daughter died. So she was just showing me that she knew about that. Well, just then, the daughter shows me in my mind's eye, she was acting really silly. In spirit, she held her hands up like little cat's paws and going like this, and she drew a little mustache on her face like cat's whiskers. And I typed to her mother, I said, now your daughter is acting like a cat with her paws drawn up and drawing a whiskers. What's up with this? Her mother wrote back to me, I'm going to pull up this picture, and attached a picture to the text, and her mother wrote, I am in tears, and I started crying. Because this is the picture that the mother has of her daughter. Look at her hands like little paws.
Oh, yeah.
And the whiskers. And the daughter on the other side was laughing and giggling and just happy as could be because she knew that I was the perfect match in frequency to pick up that signal of her to say, Mom and Dad, hey, I'm just dropping in to say hi.
Wow.
Now, there's no better evidence than that in my mind.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's so healing, for the people who have lost. So that's a drop-in, right? Because I noticed you've said that sometimes you have drop-ins. I thought that was interesting. So you have to let me know if you have a drop-in right now, if there was someone from my family.
I would love that. That doesn't happen too often for me. That's a frustration for me. Maybe it'll open up on me. But right now I'm so focused on this earthly life and the interview and being human. If I were to do a reading for you, that would require a little shift, quieting my mind, and then we'd get the good evidence. But it doesn't make for a good interview because I get quiet,
Right, yeah. So just a little bit more on how we can communicate if we want to, get in touch with our beloved ones on the other side. From what I understand, we need to raise our frequency and do our work.
Yes.
How can we, raise our frequency? Is that in meditation? Do we always need to go there?
Not always. This comes back to this practicing presence that we talked about earlier. Just not becoming addicted to those thoughts. Knowing there's another whole aspect of you that is open, spacious, and pure love. Not that your thoughts aren't loving, but that just keeps you feeling separate and not centered. So I just gave a workshop yesterday, in fact, on the process of raising your consciousness. And it begins with believing that there is higher consciousness and that its essence is love. And you become aware of, are you vibrating as high as you can in every moment? And you catch your thoughts that are less than loving and you upgrade them. Always. You respond to situations that in the past would have caused you to lash out at others, and you raise that consciousness. You practice presence to create that space for insights from higher consciousness to drop in. And
so it's interesting. So it actually tells us that we can't be in a bitter, angry, stressful state in order to receive information. We need to have higher vibrating emotions in a way, or a state. Yeah.
And a quiet mind. Right now, mine's going like crazy too, because I'm trying to get guidance so that my answers come from a higher place for you, yet focusing on you and your human side, paying attention to my human side. So there's a lot going on. That's why meditation is so beautiful. You shut out all of these distractions and you simply sit in the presence of wholeness. Beautiful. And awareness of wholeness.
And I think that just to mention what has worked for me, because I haven't met my grandfather or grandmother in this dimension, but I've connected with them in dream time. And that has been very healing too. I really saw them there. And I think that's something one can ask for. Tonight I want to see my grandfather or, my father or whoever have passed on. And I will remember my dream. I will remember my dream. I will remember my dream. And you might very well, connect. And it feels very real. At least that has worked for me.
Those are visits. They're actually visits. And I can see why that would work for you because you've admitted your brain is so busy. It's like those in spirit say, okay, if she's not going to give us a chance to talk to her during the day, we're going to drop in when her brain is finally quiet.
I know. See, I have a lot of experiences in my dreams, so I've understood that that's my way of connecting a lot. I've had it all my life. I really get contact there, but not in my physical life. So, yeah. Thank you so much, Susanna. Is there something you want to share in the end of the interview, a message or something you want, that you didn't say that you want to leave us with?
Yeah, the one message I always give everybody is to just trust in your heart. Your heart already knows that life is eternal. That's where we connect with our loved ones. So talk to them. Imagine being on the other side and you can see those still on the earthly plane and you see how much they miss you and you want to let them know that you're still with them. And it must be frustrating, but they understand. They truly understand. But how beautiful it is when we acknowledge, I know you're here. I can't sense you right now, but I love you so much. Just imagine what that means to them and talk to them.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And all the best with your upcoming book and workshops and everything, the wonderful work you're doing.
Thank you. And you too.
And thank you so much for watching, guys. And remember to subscribe to my channel if you haven't before. Much light from Norway and the US. Bye bye.